everybody, hope you're doing well and welcome back to another video. This is the second set of matches for Group B of today's video. We are going to be going through the content for the countries of Spain, Portugal, Belgium and Italy. For like I did in the Group A video, I will go through each book, what the content is basically, my thoughts and feelings, the good and the bad parts, and then the second section will be the matches between all of them, and finally I will go through my individual ratings of the books. But first of all, I forgot to do that at the end of Group A's video, so let's just really quickly go through the ratings I would have given the books from Group A. So Switzerland got 4.25 stars, Norway got 3.5 stars, Iceland got 3 stars, and Finland 3.5. And if you haven't seen that video, it is Switzerland and Finland that went through. However, I think possibly I might have chosen this over Finland, but that's just the way competition football works, and it's how it went along. So enough of the backstory and let's get to Spain. So first off, a few of my thoughts on the women's team's participation within the Euros in 2025. And Spain women's football. They are an amazing team. So many incredible individual talents, but they also just gel so well together. Score lots of goals, amazing defending, really quick fast play. Whilst I don't necessarily support them because of the heartbreak they have caused to England in the past few years, I respect them, and yeah, they shone. But who won the final? Anyway, the representative for Spain is A Voluminous Republic by Andres Barba, and this is translated from the Spanish by Lisa Dillman. And I ended up really enjoying this book, to be honest. I'm not going to give too much of the plot away for it because a lot of it comes within the reading experience. I thought was like done so well with this book, but it's basically a man that's telling the tale of around 20 years ago, when he moved with his new wife and her daughter to this like small subtropical like town within the forest sort of area. And we start with the knowledge that time ago 32 children were accidentally killed, and then he like goes back to I say maybe 6 months to a year before that event, and the discovery of these children that were coming into the town, that they were around like 8 to 13 years old, and like different theories of where they came from, how people didn't really like notice them at first, but then they started to, how they used to go around in groups and speak like an indecipherable language, and then with sort of like some like petty sort of disruptions to actual crimes and violence sort of started, like a crescendo in this attack at a supermarket, and then the government sort of response to try and tackle the problem of these children, and then also how the children of the people within the town, their sort of like fascination with them, and also the sort of like own society creation that these group of children created, basically. I didn't really say that well, but that's all I'm going to say for the plot, because one of my main like positive points, which I'm going on to now, is that it has this sort of like magical sort of fable like storytelling element to the book, and a lot of the discovery and just the way it's, you know, plotted and put together, you can only really get through reading it yourself, not really like reading a synopsis of what actually happens in it. But yes, that's one of my main positives, and why I just felt like it did like flow very well, and it was just very intriguing and had this, you know, sort of magical quality in a sense. Big part of the book is this exploration of society and the creation of one, in a sense, and sort of what makes up a society, and also the language that they speak and translations, and also about like survival as well, I'd say. In the book there's also references to like later articles or papers and this diary that was written that I felt like they are very like well embedded. It's not like you're reading the article, but it's just like him talking about an article and how that sort of corresponded to the actual events that he lived through. I quite liked, in a sense, that we understood certain events that was going to happen because you've already been told that from near the start, but we get the build up, and you sort of like, you don't know what the build up was and what led to these things, and by doing that I feel like it creates quite like some tension and just leads into this like engrossing, engaging way to carry on reading the book, basically. And I also really liked the way, I'll put a little spoiler warning now, okay, but when the people sort of find this place where the children were living in, there was whore written on one of the like beds that one of the girls was sleeping in. Exploration of how that sort of broke down this new society they created. I was reverting back to these archaic female sexuality hating ideologies, in a sense. But yeah, back to the other part. For the one sort of like real negative is that it maybe is a bit too like detailed at times and in some like unnecessary passages, that you sort of just want to get back through, and things rehashed a few times as well. But yeah, on the whole, it was a very, very decent read. And now on to Portugal. I felt Portugal were a good team. They are a decent team. They're sort of up and coming. They have quite a few good talents. They do get results, not usually against the sort of better teams in a way. But yeah, I felt like they were quite enjoyable to watch. They had a fighting spirit, and also with the Euros starting with the knowledge of Diego Jota, the male Liverpool star and Portugal national team player, his tragic accident that killed him and his brother as well. The way they bounced back was very commendable, and how they remembered him as well was done really well. For the Portuguese representative, we have Deaf at Intervals by Jose Saramago, and this is translated from Portuguese by Margaret Jal Costa. This is I have a lot to say about it. Some good and some bad, and I feel like it does even out quite a bit. This is the only book I've read thus far. I do have 4 left I haven't yet read, that I had to listen to the audiobook as well as reading along physically, just because, like, as you can see, a lot of it is just straight up pages and pages of text, and it's hard to follow. It definitely helped. The plot of this is that in this country that you don't really know where it is, but on the first day of the new year, no one dies. Death is like no longer a thing. People that are like right up to the edge of deaths on New Year's Eve, such as a character in here like the Queen's mother, I think, who is basically literally going to die within the next like few hours. Once it got to midnight, no, she carried on living. And the same for lots of other people as well. And then it delves into the complications with there being no death, such as the example of like families moving people across the border where this isn't happening, so their relatives can die, and also the like political like relations between the 2 countries with this being a thing, the role of like mafia and the different like government bodies, the fact that only humans aren't dying, and like why this might be the case, sort of like humanity's relationship with death. So that's sort of like the 60% of the book, and then the final 40% it shifts to the point of view and narration from the character of Death, who is a female, and her sort of like relationship to her job, and this sort of sense that she is closer to humans than God is, and sort of exploring that in a way. For the positives and negatives, I say that I do quite like the alluding to sort of ideas about euthanasia and like arguments for and against, in a sense, because like if someone's on such a living such a horrible existence where they're sort of brain dead in a sense, and they're just waiting for death and it's not coming, and the only solace people can provide for them is to move them across the border so they can die, then like sort of like exploring them arguments for that. Also the meaning of death and like, you know, our sort of relationship to it, which I felt was done very well. The like implications and issues from a like government point of view of there being no deaths. I wrote in my notes that there was a story between an old man and a wooden bowl, like little section that I must have enjoyed when I wrote my notes. I don't fully remember why exactly I enjoyed it, but if you read it, maybe take note of that. And then also I did really like the sort of the way Death and the cellist player man character, their sort of story, and also the cellist and his dog, I just felt was just like really poignant and was nice to read. For the negatives, a big one is that there are so many like tangents and just deep explorations of things that I just didn't really feel were that necessary and didn't lend too much to the plot. I did not like the writing and the grammar, and the dialogue was very annoying, and it's just like, it's hard to explain, but just like if you read it, it's basically just all words. And the second point is also that paragraphs go on for like 5 pages and it's just all the same paragraph. Chapters are very long as well, so it's difficult to stop where you want to stop. And back to the dialogue, which is the point I was on, is that it's not on like separate lines or anything, it's all just within the same mass of text, and it's hard to follow because like you don't really know who's talking and like then who is talking next and stuff. It's not really that like given to you, so it's just quite frustrating. Another reason why I sort of wanted the audiobook as well, so you could sort of hear the slight narration changes within the dialogue sections. The thing is that it's kind of 2 stories mashed together. The transition is okay, but they are basically 2 stories in a sense. And another point actually was that you have sort of answers for things that aren't really given that much, and a bit of an ambiguous ending, so which is a little bit frustrating. So yeah, we shall see. Now on to Belgium. For some reason, I don't really know why, but I just don't particularly enjoy the Belgian national teams. Quite a few players for the women as well also play for Everton, and I don't like Everton. And Leicester as well, and another team I don't particularly like. So yeah, I don't know, I feel like they're fine, but I just don't really care too much. I respect them, but I don't particularly like them. But anyways, to the book, and we have I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman, and this is translated from French by Ros Schwartz. This is one I've been anticipating for a long time because so many people, specifically on BookTok and BookTube as well, have absolutely adored it, loved it, 5-star jazz hand, sort of life-changing book. So I was expecting a lot in a sense because of all the hype, I guess. I enjoyed it, but it didn't personally live up to that for me. Maybe I did build it up a bit too much in my mind. But this is a very interesting book. I feel like it's a very, very good one for like a book club, I would say. And the plot is that we're following sort of like an unnamed narrator, and she's writing on events from her past. It starts with her as basically sort of getting into adolescence, in a cage with 39 other women, and she was a child when she was put in there, and everyone else sort of like knows some of the life they led before and the world that they were part of. And without saying too much on what is the plot on the back, but sort of like a chance encounter leads these women to be able to escape, and their search for like society and others and a new life, and then also the exploration of stories from these women's past and how the main character can't really ever truly understand or relate to any of this, because she never lived in that time like with consciousness in a sense. So that's for the plot. I don't want to say any more because it will do a disservice for when you actually read it, I would say. I have a lot of notes, and for the good and the bad, and we'll get to them now. For the first positive, it is very, very well written. Just like it flowed well. It's engaging and you want to continue. You do really get a good glimpse into her mind, because it's all sort of her own point of view talking about the events from the past. I did like the relationship she forged with others, how they sort of created this new society which was prevalent in Illuminous Republic. And then also there is some discussion on sort of like death as a solace to some, and leading to some of the thoughts of euthanasia within death at intervals. I also did really, really like the fact that she included there being sort of lesbian couples in a sense within this society of women. That was done well, because like in another book, Herland by Charlotte Perkins Gilman, which is a book I despise, still the worst book I've ever read, I hated it. It's this sort of society of women and everyone's just women, but there's not a single mention of the fact that there might be queer women. Okay, obviously it was written so much longer, but like before this, but still, from my eyes, that was a disservice. Also, there is this sort of like carrying on despite sort of losing some hope, and it is quite bleak but is hopeful at the same time, and how it is a bit of both, a good and a negative. For a negative is that I wrote that I was maybe expecting to be this like 5-star jazz handsy sort of creme de la creme j'adore book that I was gonna, you know, change my life in a sense of how people have described it. It wasn't that, but still, it's not necessarily a negative of the book, because it's my interpretation of what I thought it was going to be didn't live up to it, but still it was good. And how there is sort of like lots of these no questions that are answered, but I guess if you was to transverse that to a positive, this is definitely more about the characters and the journey that you go on by reading this. I don't know if that it did feel a little bit distant at times, this sort of first person narration. And one other positive that I sort of look at my notes, they are horrific, is that it's devoid of men. Oh yeah, obviously, the like story and how it's sort of like a woman's tale, and her sort of transition to womanhood, and yeah, I just felt like it was done well. My brain isn't probably working, but yeah, that was I Who Have Never Known Men. Now to the final country, Italy. Same again, I don't particularly like the Italian team. I remember the men beating England in the final of the Euros, the home one in 2021, I think it was. I'm not sure. And I remember I was working at Gap at the time, and how there was like big excitement for the final, and like England was in the final and everything. And they want to beat us, and then the carnage that was left and the horrible aftermath. Obviously, not really Italy's fault, but yeah, I don't know. I just don't particularly enjoy the Italian team. I feel like they are sort of quite technical, and they still do have this like driving spirit that was very prevalent in the Women's Euros, and got them to the quarters. And they were 1-0 up against England in the semi-final, actually, wasn't it? Yeah. But we came back. But anyway, the representative for Italy is The Dry Heart by Natalia Ginsberg, and this is translated from Italian by Francis Fraiane. I was maybe expecting a little bit more from the way it started, and it sort of lost me a little bit as the book went along. But this is basically following the story of a 26-year-old female main character. I don't believe she's given a name. And her meeting with this 40-ish-year-old man called Alberto. And he is quite like secretive, and he doesn't really seem that interested. But the main character has sort of lived quite a sheltered and dull life, and she's sort of like seeking more from her life in a sense. And the two sort of like go along walks by the rivers and go to cafes and things, and decide to get married, and then they move in together and have a daughter. And then there are sort of like these more lies and absences of Alberto. We also get you know, like interactions between the main character's cousin Francesca, and I felt like she was quite like an irritating character, but I did sort of also like the way that she was a representative of the sort of like modern woman of the like age when it was like written and set, which was the like 50s, I think, 40s, 50s sort of time, yeah. Sort of like post-war. But yeah, that is sort of the plot summary. Well, so I didn't really actually write it in my notes, but basically it starts with her shooting her husband after, you know, a few years together, I guess. And I guess its main positive is that it's like a very, very interesting start, and you're just like hooked. I'm just like, hun, why? Like, not like I'm not laughing at it, but like I was intrigued. And then also I guess the other positive is like this sort of breakdown of this marriage and like what led her to shooting him. And then another bit is sort of like this treatment of women at the time, and also, you know, the exploration of a modern woman and the life that she led. For the negatives is that it has quite like an unclear ending. Like most of the characters were quite irritating, and it felt like it was lacking something. Like I can't fully put my finger on what, but it just, maybe it's like a distinction between the reading and the reader, and just like, yeah, I felt like it just lacked some more depth and a bit more to it. But yeah, it's readable. It definitely sort of like goes through it quite quickly. Obviously it's quite short, but yeah, you just sort of want to continue reading and sort of like understand, but then at the end you're just a bit like, okay, maybe a little bit more I wanted. But that was Italy. Now on to the match analysis is so I've got my little spreadsheet of all the matches on, and we shall go through them. Like I said in the previous video and in the introduction, all the books are going to be rated on scoring goals for characters, plot, writing, enjoyment and impact, and then maybe some adjustments as well. So the first match was between Belgium and Italy, and Belgium got goals for characters, plot, writing, enjoyment and impact. Italy got a penalty that was converted by Belgium because of, I can't fully remember why I did this in my thing, but it's all there now, it's in the other thing, so I can't change it. But I think just for like the sort of more questions and answers aspect of the Belgian entry, and Italy got a very early penalty awarded to them, which was converted because of just the amazing start, in my opinion, to the book. So it ended 6-1 to Belgium. Next is Spain and Portugal, and Spain got goals for characters, plot, writing, enjoyment and impact, with no adjustment, so it ended 5-0 to Spain. Next match between the two winners of both their first games, Spain and Belgium, and Spain got goals for plot and enjoyment, and Belgium for characters, writing and impact, so it ended 3-2 to Belgium. Then we have Portugal and Italy, and Portugal got goals for characters, plot and impact, and Italy for writing and enjoyment. Portugal converted a penalty for the like sort of lacking of something of the Italian entry, but Italy converted 2 penalties as well. First for its amazing start, and secondly just for the irritating, I guess, nature of the writing and reading experience of the Portuguese entry. So it ended in 4-4, the first draw of the competition. Penultimately is Italy versus Spain, and Spain got goals for characters, plot, writing, enjoyment, impact, and a penalty converted for the lacking of something within this book. However, they did also convert a penalty for its good start, so it ended 6-1 to Spain. And then finally is Belgium and Portugal, and Belgium clean sweep 5-0 for characters, plot, writing, enjoyment and impact. Like I said, winning 5-0. So that means the way the group ended up with is Portugal 1 point with -10 goals overall, which is ones scored minus the ones they conceded, but they scored 4 goals. Italy is also on 1 point with -10 goals overall, but they scored 6, so that's why it's ahead. In second place is Spain with 6 points and 9 goals overall. But the topper of the group with the full 9 points and 11 goals overall is Belgium. So that means that Spain and Belgium are going to progress to the quarterfinals, and good luck to them, and we bid au revoir to Portugal and Italy. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Oh, almost forgot, the star ratings. For Spain's Illuminous Republic, I gave it 4 stars. For Belgium's Who Have Never Known Men, I gave it 3.75 stars. So although top in the group, it did personally wasn't beaten out by the Spanish entry. The Dry Heart with Italy was 3.5 stars. And Death at Intervals in last place was 3 stars for the Portuguese entry. Now I can say thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Remember to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Stay tuned for Group C's matches and content coming very, very soon, and then Group D as well in the finals. And I hope you have a nice morning, even night, wherever you are in the world, and I shall be seeing you very, very soon. Bye!